Today I'm excited because there's nothing I like more than a fresh batch of prospects to begin breaking down, evaluating, ranking, all of that fun stuff. And we begin the 2026 NFL draft journey with a full breakdown and an early evaluation of the consensus QB1. To be honest with you, I got really tired of the Shedeur Sanders conversation this year, so unless the consensus QB1 in the 2026 class has an NFL legend in their bloodline as well, I'm just glad to say that it's going to be all about what's happening on the field in 2026. If you do enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing, it would be very much appreciated. But now let's dive in and find out if Arch Manning really is the real deal. So of course what I'm alluding to is that Arch Manning was named after his grandfather and former two-time Pro Bowl quarterback Archie Manning, and is the nephew of Peyton and Eli Manning. We will get to the film, but the first positive about Arch Manning is that he is a franchise quarterback character. From every interview I could find and in terms of what coaches say about him, he is not in any way entitled, despite his family name, in fact quite the opposite. He did an interview with ESPN where he described the attention he is getting as undeserved. Plus, it doesn't seem fake. He seems to genuinely have a grounded personality, and the reason this is an important trait is that a young quarterback needs to be aware of how he can improve. He also needs to be driven, which is much easier if you don't have this mentality that everything is going to be handed to you. So that's a big tick in the personality box. He's 6'4", which is great. There's also no injury history to speak of. He just turned 20 on day 3 of the 2025 draft, so if he does come out this year, he's going to be a very young prospect. Now, it's important to bear in mind that this season will be Manning's first as a starter. Most of these games we're going to be looking at, he's just coming in halfway through because Quinn Ewers has been injured or Texas are 50 points in the lead. So he's not always getting the chance to work his way into a game. Like his debut here in 2023, Texas are up 50-7. I'm just looking for flashes. Manning begun this game understandably hesitant to take too many chances, but showed some athleticism. And as you can see on this play, he starts to find his rhythm, at least in terms of holding his ground in the pocket, going through his process. Ball was a bit behind the receiver on this play, but when I talk about flashes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Not only does he show the ability to make an accurate throw on the run, but there's also an element of processing here. He recognises that this defender is on the back foot, so he's got his man in space. The only concern I've got at this point in time is highlighted on these last couple of plays. He underthrows his receiver on this one, and this next play looks like he's putting his whole body into the throw, so I believe this is Arch Manning's arm strength on full display. I have to say the ball isn't flying out, so something to keep an eye on as we move to week 1 of 2024. Texas are 38 points up, and Arch Manning comes into the game. He has a great start in this game, again showing the ability to throw on the run. On the next play, I feel like he misses a read. I'd like to see him show some anticipation and confidence to throw this ball, but then how good is this on the very same play? It's not much in theory, but the composure and on-the-fly creativity to just flick this ball the way he does, he's definitely showing some potential in terms of his ability to make things happen when the play breaks down. He then makes a nice accurate timing throw, but again, wouldn't mind him pulling the trigger on this one. Definitely some hesitancy showing up in these early games, but many college quarterbacks have this. It was the main flaw in this 2025 class for me. The hesitancy to throw into open windows was something I found in the film of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. This is week 3 versus UTSA. Ewers gets hurt and Manning comes in with Texas up 14-0. And they start Manning off with a pretty much identical play to the one they did against Colorado State. And he makes another accurate throw rolling to his right. So this is clearly something he's very comfortable doing. And this is something that Arch has that Eli and Peyton didn't. I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson, but he's got some decent wheels. Takes this to the house, and then these next few plays get a bit wobbly. Starting with a sack, being a bit picky here because this is just a blitz that he didn't pick up on pre-snap, but as soon as you feel that blitz coming, he knows where his hot route is, so pull the trigger early and avoid taking a sack. He then puts the ball in a dangerous position, but I think this is more of a case of just not being on the same page as his receiver, because he goes through his reads fine, feels the pressure and then tries to throw over the top, but the receiver slows down. So not as bad as it looks on first glance. but the offense just completely loses rhythm in this portion of the game. UTSA are bringing the heat. Manning missed this throw. They try to get the quick game, screens are getting blown up, balls are getting batted down. But this was a subtle play that I really liked. It's 28-7, Texas have got the game well in their hands. And of course, it's a lot easier to be calm under pressure when you're a long way in the lead. But I just sort of like the rhythm and the poise he shows on this sort of side army flick, because things aren't always going to be perfect in the NFL. You have to keep your composure and just keep making the easy throws. The offense does eventually find its rhythm, and from this point in the game, Manning is on fire. This deep ball, for example, looks like an absolute layup, but it's a lot more impressive when you really break it down, because this receiver is covered. Manning isn't going to throw this ball until the DB trips at the last minute, but as you're going to see from the other angle, Manning feels the pressure but keeps his eyes downfield and trusts his ability to throw off platform and executes. Then you're going to see another accurate throw on the move, but this time to his left, which obviously for a right-handed quarterback is a lot more challenging, but he makes it work and he's throwing all of these balls with touch. I don't feel like he has a cannon for an arm, but my main takeaway so far is that after just a sprinkle of snaps as a college quarterback, he looks like he could start in the NFL today. Quinn Ewers doesn't recover for a couple of games, so we're about to see the real test for Manning, because at the moment he's very composed, he's not putting the ball in harm's way, because they're 20 points in the lead. Can he maintain this level of performance under a bit more pressure in week 4? As is becoming a consistent feature, Manning's play script opens up with a bootleg. Defense are all over this one though, moving to his left. These quick slants have also been useful early in Manning's games, just in terms of getting him into rhythm, but I thought he did a good job on this next play, not falling for the traps of these DBs. Then we have a perfectly timed throw, puts it where only his receiver can get it. But then we're going to have our first major mistake from Manning, and this was exactly what I'm speaking about. What's his decision-making like when the game's tied and he has to find that balance of pushing the ball downfield, but also not putting the ball in dangerous areas? So Manning does a great job to start this play, evading this first defender. And I do like the intention here. When we're looking for the early signs of a great quarterback, he wants to push the ball downfield and he wants to throw with anticipation. He's kind of looking to throw into this space as his receiver is coming open. The problem is he does it as he's being hit. We've established that he doesn't have a cannon of an arm, so the ball's just never going to get there. This interception, though, is part of what makes the next play so impressive. The game is still tied at 0. Manning's going to come straight back, no memory of that last play, trusts his decision-making, and makes a perfect throw downfield and puts plenty of air underneath it, making it easier for his receiver to track. This was another messy play, but not really on him. Continues to make his layups, and then pulls off his signature bootleg to the right for a touchdown. He goes deep again, and it's the right decision. I really like how he's anticipating receivers to come open as opposed to just waiting until they're open, but pretty significantly underthrows this receiver. But doesn't lose his rhythm, makes an accurate throw with good timing into the intermediate range. This was an excellent play call. Texas have been running a lot of screens for Manning, so how do you stop the defense from anticipating the screens? You make them look silly. Nicely executed by Manning, but he's going to overthrow this deep ball, maybe overcompensating from when he underthrew the last deep ball. Very nearly falls for this classic DB trap, undercutting the sideline curl route. But these are the mistakes you've got to make to learn from them. Let's not lose sight of the fact that these are very early stages in his development. But on the next play, goes for the jugular again and does underthrow his receiver a little bit. But these are explosive receivers he's throwing to in Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. So it's understandable that he's still working out the range for these deep balls. Now we're going to skip a few plays where there wasn't much going on. But this one we need to address because he's being too aggressive now. They're up 28-3. There's no need for him to be trying to force the ball into such a tight window. I think what we've probably got going on here is that he's recognising this as his opportunity whilst Ewers is injured to cement himself as the starter. But I want to see the ability to manage a game, and this isn't managing a game. He does start to lose his rhythm, and then the mistake comes. And when the game's tied or you're down 7, this is certainly not a terrible decision. But in the context of the game, just look after the ball. I mean, no team's ever thrown away a 28-3 lead by being too conservative, let's be honest. But Manning continues to push up until the end of the third quarter, where he gets taken out of the game, presumably just because Texas don't want to lose another quarterback to injury. And in totality, this looked like a young quarterback who has some things to learn. But as I've been saying, at this stage, we're just looking for flashes. And this game was full of the flashes that I want to see. In fact, it's not even really flashes. He is consistently going through progressions, looking to take opportunities, which is a huge deal for me, because I think so many quarterbacks, even in the NFL, just leave so many plays on the field. So I love that Manning's aggressive, he's very accurate. We just need to see with experience him reining in the aggressiveness just a touch, especially from a game management aspect. If you're a long way in the lead, don't be taking unnecessary chances. But he does finish up pretty strong here, and I'm very intrigued to see how he performs in week 5. This is the last game we're going to look at because this is his only other opportunity as a starter. And then we'll start diving into what this really means in terms of what he could be as a prospect. Manning came out absolutely on fire in this game, and as much as anything, it's the timing and the rhythm, throwing to receivers as they're coming open, and he is just money with these intermediate throws. He seems to have nailed the balance of throwing with touch and making it easier for his receiver to catch it, but also putting enough force behind the ball to make sure a defender can't make a play. I'm just going to fast forward a few of these quick plays. Bit of a misjudgment on this one, but as I've alluded to, he's trying to throw with anticipation, and these aren't receivers he's spent all season as the starter working with. He'll have a much better chance going into next season as the clear starter and spending a bit more time getting on the same page as these receivers. I was really glad to see him not push the ball here. Texas are 7 points up, and it's these sort of half opportunities where in the last game we saw him pulling the trigger on these, but this is a great sign of his ability to make sensible decisions. We then have a screen and a check down before a phenomenal downfield throw. I mean, the receiver manages to drop it, but super impressive ball placement. And I thought these next few plays were a great showing of what Manning could be in the NFL. The game is 7-6, so Texas are 1 point in the lead, and there's 1 minute until the end of the second quarter. So a really clear game management situation. He's not forcing the ball, he's taking what the defense gives him, allows his receiver to get out of bounds and stop the clock. Really, they're just trying to get close enough to kick a field goal. But if there's a genuine opportunity to throw the ball deep, you know Manning's going to take it. And I mean, look at this throw. He throws this as he's about to be hit with perfect ball placement, plenty of air underneath it, and this is where I don't want it to get misconstrued when I say that I'm not sure he has a cannon of an arm. I'm just saying that when we're talking about him as maybe the best prospect in this draft class, he's not going to be a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert, but I do have a comparison that's starting to form in my mind. I'm going to save that for a moment, but he can make every throw. He continues to manage the game nicely, but we're going to get to another example of Manning being ready to start in the NFL today. It may not look like much, but I can't tell you how much joy this brings me. The reason being is that I've just spent an entire off-season hearing about how pro-ready Shedeur Sanders is, and I know this has nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders, but I bring it up because it's fresh on the mind, and I think this is good context. Manning goes through his progressions, steps up in the pocket, and throws to the open receiver. I don't know when we lost track of what a pro-ready quarterback is, but so much of it is about timing and rhythm, understanding of space in the pocket, and to be fair to Shedeur, this is something that lots of young quarterbacks struggle with. You look at from last year's class, the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, and the number 3 pick, Drake May. Both of these guys struggled with the efficiency of their pocket movement. So for Arch Manning to seemingly have this nailed, you can probably tell that he started to really win me over. And then just as I'm ready to give you a whole monologue about the maturity he's shown in this game in particular, he pulls this one out the bag. And it's not so much the physical ability to do this, it's the looseness that he's playing with. He's not predetermining anything. You could even say it's a bit Mahomes-ish. We're coming towards the home stretch of the game now, and he finishes off with a couple of plays that have just become the norm as we've gone through his film today. This last game was a thoroughly convincing final performance, and I'm excited to tell you what I think this all means. So let's start with the comparison, because I mentioned that I had one starting to form in my mind for Manning, and once that started to form, I couldn't unsee it. My comparison for Arch Manning is Joe Burrow. And when I give these comparisons, it's not necessarily saying that this player is going to be as good as this player, but in terms of a prototype, I think they're really similar. Both around 6'4", 220. I did start to appreciate Manning's arm more as the video went on, but similar to Burrow, he's going to be more of a touch thrower than a laser thrower. I think they are similar sort of athletes. Both have excellent pocket presence. And in terms of the decision making, there's been times in his career where Burrow seems to never stop checking the ball down, and there's other times where he looks like the most aggressive deep ball thrower in the league. And the reason for that is because he's not set in his ways, he adapts to the situation. He's never really had much of an offensive line in Cincinnati, so a lot of the time checking it down is the sensible thing to do. But at the same time, his main weapon is Ja'Marr Chase, and Ja'Marr Chase is all about the deep ball. So Burrow seems to have a remarkable understanding of that balance between making sensible decisions and not being too aggressive when it's not necessary, but also taking every opportunity that's there. I think in that last game we saw, Manning displayed that balance throughout. On top of this, the processing that Manning showed was exceptional, and I probably didn't speak about that enough because the Manning name kind of meant I assumed processing was going to be one of his strong points. But if this was just any young quarterback prospect, I would probably be putting a lot more emphasis on how impressed I am by how comfortable he is going through progressions. So most of the time, comparisons aren't to be taken too seriously, but that one really does line up to me. These next few categories, though, really aren't to be taken too seriously, because in terms of projection, obviously, we don't know what teams are going to be picking where. I haven't looked at the other prospects in this class, and even then, there's still a year of football to be played. With that said, I am going to project him to be a top 5 pick, and that's a really safe projection. This isn't like that year, if you remember, Spencer Rattler was playing for Oklahoma. Everyone seemed to have him down as the future number 1 pick before his final college season, and then he just had a complete disaster, didn't even come out that year, so you can never know for sure, especially not at this point. But Manning's about as safe a bet as you're going to get, because even at his level of experience, he looks like a starting quarterback to me, and on top of that, he's got the Manning name, and rightly or wrongly, that will only build his hype. An actual team destination is even harder to predict at this stage, but most likely at this point, I would say the Dolphins and the Panthers, because the Dolphins just feel like they could implode at any moment, and the Panthers, as far as I can tell, have the worst roster in the league. They also have a quarterback that I still have very little faith in, so I could see both those teams picking in the top 5. But my favourite spot is the Las Vegas Raiders. The reason I don't think they're the most likely is because I just don't think the Raiders are going to be picking in the top 5. I'm a big fan of Geno Smith. I think they've got an underrated roster. So that's the dream situation for any of these quarterbacks really. But Brady seems to have a genuine input on the decisions that the Raiders are making with his 10% ownership. And I feel like a pro-ready quarterback like Manning would be exactly what Brady is looking for. My evaluation at this stage is that he's a top 5 pick. And again, we're looking a long way ahead here, but with how pro-ready he is already, I've got a feeling he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I could see him being like a CJ Stroud or a Jaden Daniels, where it really doesn't take him that long to establish his place. But that's all from me. If you do enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing, as it would be very much appreciated. And let me know if you want to see more of these early looks at the 2026 class. Most likely, I'll be back with Garrett Nussmeier, who is ahead of Manning on many early draft boards, so keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you next time.